Good evening, everyone. We're going to be starting our oil and gas webinar here very shortly. If you can just give us a couple minutes so that we can make sure all of the folks that had registered to participate in this evening's discussion get all set up, but we'll try to get started here in the next couple of minutes. Thank you. For those that may have just joined in, we will get started here very shortly. We're waiting just to make sure that we have all of the registered participants on the Zoom webinar before we get started. So just be a couple more minutes and we'll get going. So thanks everybody for your patience. Okay, I think we're ready to get started here. So first want to just thank everybody for their time here this evening. We are, of course, here presenting a oil and gas development, and this is a neighborhood meeting in which to introduce that particular proposal. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Troy Bliss. I am with the City of Loveland Current Planning Division, and am serving as not only the project manager on the city side of things for this particular proposal, but also will serve as a point of contact for those of you that have questions or need any additional information outside of this neighborhood meeting. And I will make sure prior to our conclusion here this evening that I put up a slide that includes not only information that'll take you to the city's oil and gas webpage, but also my contact information as well. So let's start by just kind of establishing what our agenda is going to look like here this evening. So first, I'm just going to kind of go through introductory and also establish some, operating and ground rules for how we want to conduct this Zoom webinar tonight. And then I'm going to turn it over to our City of Loveland's Special Counsel on Oil and Gas Matters to not only talk to you about what the process, the city's review process looks like in terms of looking at a potential development application, but also what the separate process looks like from the COGCC standpoint as well. Then what we'll do is we'll hear from the project team. The project team will dive into more of the details with respect to the proposal that we're talking about tonight. So in general, we're focusing on a site that basically sits west of Interstate 25, south of Highway 34, also known as East Eisenhower Boulevard, directly north of the railroad tracks, and generally east of the Loveland Sports Park. So that's the general location that we're focusing on. Like I said, we'll bring up more detailed information and visuals to provide everybody with that information as we go along here this evening. After the MRG presentation for what we're calling the CS Well Pad project, we will then open it up to public input and take questions, comments, feedback from those of you that are joining us here tonight and have an interest in this particular subject matter. So that's kind of our general agenda for tonight. Just to start with, as far as takeaways, obviously we want to share with you some of the city's information as it pertains to oil and gas regulations, and give you a little bit of insight with respect to the COGCC regulations and their process as well. Like I said, and then hear from the project team. Here's kind of how we want to structure the meeting here tonight as far as participation goes from those of you that are participating. We would ask that for purposes of introductions that you provide your name and also state your city of residence. Given the number of registrants that we do have here this evening, we are going to limit any comments, questions to 3 minutes. And I would also kind of emphasize to that particular point that we would like to avoid any duplicative questions, comments, any feedback to that nature, just so that we can be mindful of everyone's time and make this meeting efficient as possible. Our goal is to keep within the 2-hour window that we've set up for tonight's meeting. So running from 5:30 to 7:30 tonight. Now, those of you that are not participating in the Zoom webinar function and have chosen to use the call-in function, we can take note if you have any questions or comments that you would like to share. If you press *9, that'll prompt you to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you as appropriate. So one thing as we get into the public input portion, everybody is going to remain muted, and we want to make sure that not only we get through the introductory, but give the MRG team the opportunity to present their proposal before we start taking questions. And we do have folks that are helping us moderate this meeting, so we'll make sure that we call upon everybody who is interested in providing their input. Again, we want to be respectful about how we approach this meeting, so want to avoid any disruptions, any people trying to talk over one another, and just be mindful of the fact that of course this meeting is being recorded, and we will put that on our website so that folks who may not have had the opportunity to participate in this evening's meeting can go back and review that information as needed. And then of course, again, let's just keep in mind to be respectful of everyone's time and everyone's input here. I think one of the key aspects of tonight's meeting is that we don't really want to focus on, your political position with respect to oil and gas development, but be more geared towards what does the city process look like, and what does that involve, and kind of the next steps in the decision-making process, and how those of you who are interested can continue to participate in this effort. So again, want to thank you for your time this evening, and I'm going to pause and turn it over to Matt Sura, again, who is our special counsel on oil and gas matters, to fill in the rest before we hear from the MRG team. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Should be able to see my screen at this point. My name is Matt Sura. I'm special counsel for the city of Loveland, and I want to just do a very quick review of both the city process and the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission process. Now, first of all, getting into the city review process, it starts with a concept review where the applicant will come to city staff, planning staff, and describe their proposal. And that's an opportunity for both parties to get a better understanding of what is going to happen and what they're trying to accomplish. That's really what this neighborhood meeting is about as well. So after that concept review and neighborhood meeting, there's a formal application, there's a completeness review, get into administrative review where we have a number of the agencies within the city and outside agencies look at that. There's some back and forth. We get into the director recommendation, and then it ultimately goes to the planning commission for a hearing and decision. And so just to go into a little bit more detail, again, that concept review is for the applicant to get to know really what is expected through the code process and that application process, and some of the requirements that are in that code, and also for the city staff to better understand what they're trying to accomplish. The neighborhood meeting is very similar in that we're trying to ensure that the applicant knows concerns of the neighbors well in advance of putting forward that application, and also neighbors or interested parties know more about what is being proposed and can be ready to respond appropriately. And that's what we're doing tonight. And the formal application process is where there's much more formal submissions. There's going to be all sorts of exhibits, probably dozens of exhibits. Colorado and Gas Conservation Commission also has similar requirements. And what's interesting about the city code is that it really requires both requirements that the city follow, that they follow from that code, but also the Colorado and Gas Conservation Commission process also has to be complied with. And because we've got this applicant is doing a dual submission, that is submitting both simultaneously to the city and the Colorado and Gas Conservation Commission, we'll have the benefit of all of those materials submitted both to the state and to the city. And ultimately, that information goes to internal review within the city, and you can think of transportation department. Certainly, utilities would be interested in this. Emergency response. There's also going to be like emergency response and Loveland Fire. There's also going to be outside agencies. Larimer County is another example. There might be a ditch company that is involved. The railroad might be involved in this one because of its proximity to the railroad. So those agencies will also have the benefit of being able to comment. And it's also a public comment period as well. We looked at a 45-day public comment period in the past, and we'll do something similar for the CS pad. I just want to emphasize that public comments that concern compliance with the code or the Colorado and Gas Conservation Commission rules are really most beneficial for review staff. And then we get into revisions. The city is going to look to the experts in some of those different fields in transportation, emergency response, also public comments, be feeding those back to the applicant and would like answers to some of those questions. And there may be a requirement for additional submittals at that point, or resubmittals if there are additional questions that need to be answered. At that point, there can be some back and forth, and ultimately it goes to the director for his recommendation, and that director recommendation then goes to the planning commission and a full public hearing at that point. The planning commission's decision may be appealed to the city council by the applicant, adjacent landowners, or those who received mailed notice. We had some questions last time about the impact on future land use. There are the equivalent to reverse setbacks within the code, and that is 200 feet is undeveloped and really restricted to open space without public access, open space around the oil and gas location. And then 300 feet from, so you have 200 feet, 300 feet from that, or 500 feet. There is only listed uses, and that does not include residential uses. So there's no homes within 500 feet of the oil and gas location. And then there's an additional 500 feet that doesn't allow for high occupancy use, and that includes multifamily dwellings. And then getting into the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission process, it really starts with completion. Completeness review goes into a 45-day public comment and consultation period. They do administrative review, very similar to what the city is doing. And then there is an opportunity for a public hearing before the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission. And it all starts with the website. Being familiar with the website is a good place to find all of these documents. There's an oil and gas development plan hearing that is set, usually 90 days from when that completion date is set, when the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission staff finds it complete. And there's a 45-day public comment period on the Form 2A, and that is simultaneously a consultation period for Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, as well as a Department of Wildlife, potentially. There's administrative review. Again, there's could be some back and forth in that period, but then ultimately there's a 30 days prior to the hearing is a deadline for request for party status to be a party to the hearing. And then there's a director recommendation, and then it goes to hearing before the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission. That commission is appointed by the governor, and it's 5 people as a professional staff. And those hearings are also remote. They used to do them in Denver, but now it's all Zoom meetings, so everybody can attend. The way that you find these permits is you go to the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission website, click on the permits. That'll take you to this. You'll look for the Form 2A, which is the location assessment. That will bring you here. And again, those will give you the deadlines. They'll give you all the pertinent information. If you click on both these links here, that'll give you all the documents that are part of that Form 2A location assessment. And then also you can get into where you can publicly comment online and to the date that is there on the next row over. And these are the kinds of plans that you're going to find, as well as the Form 2A itself. All of these plans are required by the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission rules, including an emergency response plan, spill response plan, noise mitigation, light, dust, all of those nuisance issues are there. A transportation plan, again, if there's a need for it, a flood-in, shut-in plan, waste management, fluid leak detection, wildlife plan, all of those. And in this case, there also will be an alternative location analysis looking at both the proposed location and any alternative locations that could also access the minerals that are being targeted. And at the same time, we have that 45-day comment period. There's also going to be consultations with the relevant local government, in this case, the city of Loveland, proximate local government, which would be Larimer County, and then the state agencies I mentioned earlier, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And finally, again, completeness starts the timeline. It has not yet been deemed complete yet. And you can track this on that same permit site, the oil and gas development plan. The Form 2A is part of an oil and gas development plan. And so when those materials are assembled, you'll be able to track that completeness right there in this area when it's being reviewed for completeness. When it is finally complete, it will also be here. And again, this is where you can get more information. This is an example for the CE pad and oil and gas development plan materials is probably not only something that you would want to be involved in if you're looking to participate in a hearing. It's really the Form 2A where the public comment is more frequently given. In this case, because both the state process and the city process will be happening simultaneously, any comments that go to the Coal and Gas Conservation Commission will also be brought into the city process. So you don't have to make comments in both locations. And that's the end.
All right, thanks, Matt, for that that additional introductory from the city side of things. At this point, I'd like to introduce the MRG team. Certainly take time to introduce the folks who will be presenting, and then we'll hear from them in terms of the detailed proposal. After that, like I had mentioned, then we'll get into the public comment portion of our meeting. So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Jessica.
We'll bring up our presentation.
Thank you, Troy, for that. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Jessica Donahue, and I'm here on behalf of MRG to present to you the proposed CS project. We're really excited to share this project with you. This project has gone through nearly a decade of planning, and the MRG team feels that the project we are presenting this evening is the most protective of public health, safety, welfare, and the environment to the greatest extent possible while still allowing for efficient mineral access. When planning the CS pad, MRG focused efforts on avoiding residents, wildlife habitat, consolidation of well pads, minimizing surface disturbance, maximizing the mineral development, planning operations to occur in a safe manner, and working collaboratively with the Centerra development groups of the Centerra Kinston Surface Development Plan community. The MRG oil and gas development area was originally planned by another operator with the minerals leased to that operator in 2012. At that time, development would have consisted of 5 approximately 10-acre pads with multiple short lateral wells, 7 to 10 wells per pad. Today's project develops the same set of minerals with just 1 well pad. To locate the well pad, MRG has assessed all potential alternative locations, ultimately narrowing down the locations to 5 theoretically viable locations, and then distilling down further to arrive at the proposed project. MRG has made coordinated planning efforts over the past several years to limit the surface impact in this oil and gas development plan, and has been successful in working in concert with the Centerra Kinston surface owners to reduce the surface disturbance to the single site with approximately 13 acres of disturbance during operation. Prior to this proposal, the oil and gas project would have required up to 50 wells to develop the same mineral acreage. MRG is now able to achieve full development with 11 long lateral wells. The choice of the CS location allows MRG to minimize the number of wells and surface disturbance required to efficiently develop the mineral acreage. The proposed pad is situated on Centerra West development property within the city of Loveland and is currently zoned for planned unit development as part of the Millennium General Development Plan. This evening, I am joined by several colleagues from the MRG team who I will introduce momentarily. This evening, we will provide an overview of the project, the permitting process, and the permitting timeline from construction through production. After that, we will cover some of the best management practices that MRG intends to implement, highlight the community engagement that has occurred throughout the project, as well as some of the benefits the community will receive from this project being executed. MRG is a registered oil and gas operator in Colorado. It is a managed limited partnership of the McWhinney Holding Company that is headquartered here in Loveland. MRG is a new entity that does not currently own or operate wells. While MRG is a new entity, its employees have robust experience in the industry. As I mentioned on the previous slide, MRG's team is a diverse group of professionals who have decades of industry experience. Regulatory and permitting is provided by myself and Ms. Tricia Fanning with a combined experience of over 30 years. Engineering for the project is provided by Bill Irwin, John Benton, and Andy Peterson, all of whom are participating during the meeting. Mr. Irwin has over 30 years of experience and is a registered professional engineer. Mr. Benton has over 40 years of experience in the oil and gas industry and previously served as a commissioner, chairman, in fact, on the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Mr. Peterson also has over 30 years of experience in the industry and is also a registered professional engineer. Geology on this project has been provided by Aaron Rowe and Dr. Ben Burke. Dr. Burke has nearly 2 decades of experience working in the energy industry. Land work was provided by Patricia DeGrappa and Justin Deshane. Counsel has been provided by Ms. Julia Ryan, and our health and safety contact for the MRG team is also Mr. Andy Peterson. All of the MRG attendees are available to answer any questions you may have regarding the CS pad at the conclusion of the presentation. Throughout this process, MRG has worked with several regulatory agencies and stakeholders such as City of Loveland, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, the High Plains Environmental Center, Kinston Development Team, and the Centerra Design Review Committee. MRG is also actively engaged with the surrounding residents and tenants, property owners. On this slide, we're providing the current proposed location. Later on, we will expand further on how the location was chosen. On the aerial image to your left, the yellow box is the working pad surface, which is the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, or COGCC, term for the flat temporary usable surface for temporary drilling and completions operations. The blue box is what the COGCC refers to as the oil and gas location, which is the total potential construction disturbance, which will incorporate topsoil stockpiles as well as stormwater and erosion controls. Every piece of dirt that you are directly affecting is within the oil and gas location boundary. On the drawing to your right, the red box is the oil and gas location, our total disturbance. The blue box is the working pad surface, which again is that flat temporary area for safe initial operations. And the purple outline is the long-term production location disturbance. So it's the flat area necessary for ongoing safe production operations. COGCC does not have a specific fancy term for the working pad surface after it's undergone the interim reclamation. So we will just refer to it as the production location. This project includes 1 oil and gas location, and up to 11 wells are proposed for the location. Wells will be targeting oil and natural gas from the Niobrara, Fort Hays, Codell, and Carlisle formations. The oil and gas location disturbance will be 13.3 acres, which, as a reminder, that is the blue box shown on the aerial. The working pad surface is proposed to be 6.7 acres. And again, that is that temporary flat space that's usable during drilling and completion. Access to the location will be from East Eisenhower Boulevard as part of the Hans Peak extension, north of East County Road 20E and west of I-25. The red line on the drawing shows the Hans Peak extension. The black line is the proposed access road for the location. Here's an additional aerial image of the project area zoomed out a little bit for perspective. On here, we have that acronym OGDP, that stands for Oil and Gas Development Plan, the COGCC term that incorporates all the elements of a proposed project, such as the surface disturbance and the mineral development. The yellow pin is the surface location of the CS pad. All surface equipment will be contained within the working pad surface boundary that was shown in yellow on the previous slide. The edge of the working pad surface is approximately 4,500 feet south of Equalizer Lake and over 1 mile from Boyd Lake. The working pad surface is also 2,000 feet from the Loveland Sports Park. The black box that you see is the OGDP boundary, which again incorporates all elements of the proposed project. All proposed well bores and mineral development will be within that black box. Wells will be drilled from south to north, but as I mentioned, everything is still contained within the black box. Drilling may be proposed under Equalizer Lake and Houts Reservoir. There will be no drilling occurring under Boyd Lake. The wells will be at a depth greater than 1 mile deep under the lakes, and the well bores will be lined in steel pipe as well as cemented in place. Surface features such as the lakes will not be affected by wells drilled at that depth. As I mentioned before, the wellheads and surface location are approximately 4,500 feet south of Equalizer Lake, and the proposed wells will be 1 mile deep underground. MRG is designing the surface location and proposing the development schedule in conjunction with the future residential developments to minimize potential impact for the surrounding community. And this is just an image to give you a little clearer idea of the access road that will be coming from East Eisenhower. As you can see, most traffic will come from I-25 down Eisenhower to the location. No traffic will directly go past the Medical Center of the Rockies nor the Loveland Sports Park.
And apologies if you hear us murmuring the sidebars. Our camera just started making a buzzing noise, so we just wanted to make sure everyone can still see and hear us. So apologies for that short interjection.
I apologize, we're having some technical difficulties on this side. Here we go. So the permitting process overview. Local and state permitting processes run independently to one another. The two primary permitting paths for the CS pad are the COGCC process and the City of Loveland process. Last spring, MRG met with City of Loveland to discuss how the City of Loveland process would align with the COGCC process. And while they are two independent processes, we did agree on the steps that would occur along the way. The COGCC process is shown here in the blue rectangle. You have COGCC submittal, followed by the permit completeness determination. Once the permit has been deemed complete, it undergoes technical review. Then a director's recommendation is drafted by COGCC staff, and the operator will then go to hearing before the COGCC commission and receive their decision. City of Loveland is outlined here in the orange bubble. For this particular area, you meet first with the Centerra Design Review Committee. Then you have your concept review meeting with the City of Loveland. Then they host the neighborhood meeting. Once the neighborhood meeting has occurred, an operator is then allowed to submit formally to the city. Since the CS pad is less than 500 feet from the parcel boundary and the adjacent parcel has a freshwater emergent wetland on it, the CS pad will be a tract-free decision as mentioned previously. Both the COGCC and City of Loveland processes have public comment periods that will take place. And of course, these are not the only two permits that are required to operate an oil and gas location or the only agency that has oversight in the process. As you've already heard, there are several regulating agencies and stakeholders. MRG will also be required to have an approved air monitoring program, a stormwater construction permit, and other air permits or APENs from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Those processes will occur in parallel to the initial permitting phases of COGCC and City of Loveland. Also, because of where the CS pad is located, MRG is working with the Centerra Design Review Committee in addition to City of Loveland on the proposed interim reclamation design and visual mitigation of the production pad. I will go into more depth on the permitting process for the next slide. So that was a very generalized overview. Here we wanted to go into a little more depth of how the CS pad process has actually occurred. We still have COGCC there on the top row and City of Loveland on the bottom. Green items are events that have occurred. As mentioned, operators have been required to meet with the DRC, where we discuss their concerns regarding the site placement and visual mitigation of the production location, and the City of Loveland for the concept review meeting. During the concept review meeting, we had the opportunity to not only meet with Mr. Bliss, but representatives from several other city departments also participated, such as transportation, water, power, stormwater, fire, and parks and recreation. MRG opted to have an additional meeting prior to submittal with the City of Loveland, in which COGCC participated to discuss the alternative location analysis of the location. We will go more into what an alternative location analysis is and those locations MRG evaluated in the next slide. Orange items that you see are permitting process steps that have not occurred yet, and purple is, of course, where we are today at the neighborhood meeting. The CS pad has not been formally submitted to City of Loveland, so any plans discussed are subject to change, but this is what is currently anticipated. Previously, I referenced alternative location analysis, or ALA. An ALA is a tool used to determine what location is capable of developing minerals that also best protects public health, safety, welfare, and the environment, including wildlife resources. This mineral development has been in the process for several years, and MRG has carefully evaluated receptors in the area and worked closely with the developers to strategically locate and schedule development of the area in order to protect public health, safety, welfare, and the environment. Previous iterations, as I mentioned, of this project would have had multiple oil and gas locations to target the same proposed mineral development area. MRG has narrowed that down to just this one location. I'll walk you through the ALA, which demonstrates that the alternative sites would have had more potential impact than the CS. Here we show an overview map of the CS pad, highlighted with the blue star, and the alternative locations that MRG has evaluated. MRG identified 4 potentially viable locations as alternatives to the CS pad. The CS pad has no high occupancy building units, such as apartment complexes, within 2,000 feet of the working pad surface. There are also no schools or childcare facilities within that radius. The location is approximately 1 mile away from the Centerra Lakes Nature Reserve. It is 0.09 miles from the medical center as the crow flies. It is over 2 road miles from the medical center. All of MRG's target minerals can be accessed from this one location. The location is adjacent to existing infrastructure that would have takeaway capacity for oil and natural gas. In working with the Kinston Development Group, this location can be constructed, drilled, and completed prior to residential development occurring in the area. There are 2 residential building units within 2,000 feet of the location. Both unit owners and the residential tenants that are within the 2,000 feet have provided informed consent agreeing to the location of the well pad. What is informed consent? Informed consent is not a formal COGCC defined term, but COGCC uses informed to mean recipients must receive all necessary project information from the operator and have time to review and understand all the provided information. Consent is when the recipient makes the informed voluntary decision that it agrees to the location of the well pad. The first alternative location that MRG evaluated is shown here. This location would have been less than 500 feet from one residential building unit and within 2,000 feet of two other residential building units. And the location would have been less than 2,000 feet from Loveland Sports Park. Our second alternative is less than 2,000 feet from one high occupancy building unit, which would happen to be a healthcare facility. It is also within the airport critical zone, which could incur safety concerns at that location. Alternative location number 3 is less than 500 feet from a building unit and less than 2,000 feet from 10 other building units. It is also less than 2,000 feet from a school and within the airport critical zone. Alternative number 4 is less than 2,000 feet from a school adjacent to other wetlands and would not be able to access all the proposed mineral area development. Through the alternative location process, MRG did look at numerous other locations, as you can see. But due to the proximity of the airport and the established development that's already occurring or is finished, none of these locations were more protective than the preferred CS pad. When we met with City of Loveland and COGCC to go over the ALA, neither the city nor COGCC had identified any other alternative locations they thought might warrant further investigation. Switching gears a little bit, here's a little graphic we wanted to show to give you the phases of the project once all the permits, if and when all the permits have been approved. The timeline is anticipated and of course subject to change based upon permit approval, but ideally, if all permits are approved, construction would begin sometime in the second quarter of this year, followed by drilling, completions and flowback, put all the wells onto production, and then the site would undergo interim reclamation. So the first phase is construction. As mentioned, the initial disturbance of this oil and gas location is 13.3 acres. Just for the vocabulary refresh, because it's been a couple slides, oil and gas location is the total disturbance boundary of every grain of dirt you intend to directly affect. It is shown in this drawing as the red outline. The working pad surface is the flat space that's usable for temporary drilling and completions operation. It will be 6.7 acres and it is shown in the blue outline. The CS pad is anticipated to take approximately 3 weeks to construct. Topsoil will be scraped and segregated from the surface and stored to be used later in reclamation activities as per the COGCC 1000 series rules. The CS pad will have stormwater controls and best management practices installed prior to commencement of construction to ensure that all soils remain on location. The access road will be constructed to connect the location to the Hans Peak extension. Topsoil and other soils that are stockpiled for later usage are what occupy that space between the red and the blue box. The construction phase will consist mostly of preparation of the new location and should not have a significant impact on traffic patterns. There will be some industrial equipment utilized to build the location. During construction, that equipment is brought to location and left on location for the duration of the construction. Once equipment is on the location, traffic will be primarily pickup trucks to transport workers to the site and occasionally water trucks for dust mitigation. Construction activities will be done during daylight hours. And once the location is constructed, sound walls will be put in place prior to entering the drilling phase. MRG intends to drill all the wells proposed for this location in one occupation, which means MRG plans to have the drilling rig mobilized to location, and it will be utilized to drill all the proposed wells before leaving the location, and no other drilling activity for the location is planned. Traffic activity will increase in the area during delivery of supplies, equipment, or personnel. Drilling will be a 24-hour operation, which allows for more efficiency and minimizes actual days of the drilling occupation. Anticipated total drilling time for all 11 wells is approximately 90 days. Once drilling is completed, the rig will be moved off of location. The rig is not stored at location. Since drilling is the 24-hour activity, lighting will be on location for drilling. MRG has drafted a lighting mitigation plan. MRG will utilize mitigation such as directing the lighting away from buildings, downcast lighting, and lighting directed towards task areas only. MRG is working with City of Loveland to provide electricity to the location to be able to utilize electrified drilling rigs, which will minimize noise and emissions during drilling operations. MRG will also use freshwater mud for the surface hole and will then use OBM for the rest of the wellbore. What is OBM? OBM stands for oil-based mud. By using oil-based mud for drilling, it significantly lessens the drilling duration. It is recyclable and it allows operations to use less water to drill the well. During drilling, noise levels for the area may be increased above normal ambient levels, but they will meet COGCC Table 4231 and City of Loveland Unified Code Chapter 732.040 levels. Temporary lights will be placed on location for safety reasons during the 24-hour operation, but these lights will be, again, tilted downward and shielded as much as safely feasible. Water for the project will be purchased from a third party. All water is purchased that will be designated and permitted for industrial usage. No water is designated as drinking water will be utilized for drilling the well. No municipal water will be used, and the community's water supply is not affected. Completions. Again, the intent is for a single occupancy, so the completion rig moves to the location one time, completes all the wells, and then moves away. Once we have completed the drilling, the location moves into the completion phase. Temporary lights will be placed on location for safety reasons, again, because completions is a 24-hour operation. The lights will still be tilted downward and shielded as much as safely feasible. The 24-hour operations, again, allow for efficiency and minimizes days of actual occupation. MRG anticipates approximately 90 days to complete all the wells. Once the wells are drilled, the completions rig is mobilized to the location to begin completing the wells. Traffic activity will increase in the areas during delivery of supplies, equipment, or personnel. Once completions are completed, the rig will move off location, and the rig is not stored at this location. During completion, noise levels for the area may be increased above normal ambient levels, but they will again meet the COGCC and City of Loveland regulations. Lights will be on the location for safety during the 24-hour operations, and again, still they will be tilted downwards and shielded as much as they can for safety. As with the water that's used for the drilling, the water will be purchased from a third party. The water will be designated and permitted for industrial usage. No water that is designated as drinking water will be utilized for these wells, and no municipal water will be used, and the community's water supply will not be affected. So now we're entering that phase. Doesn't have quite all the same COGCC fancy terms, so bear with me. Once these wells are drilled and completed, they're ready for the production phase. During the production phase, there will be no hydrocarbons stored on location, only produced water tanks. The produced water tanks will be in steel berms lined containment that will hold 150% of the largest tank. Locations will undergo regular audio, visual, and olfactory inspection. MRG will connect the location to third-party pipelines for oil and natural gas takeaway. This will minimize trucking of the oil and fluid hydrocarbons. Once the wells are producing, the location undergoes interim reclamation. All areas unnecessary for long-term safe production operations are recontoured and revegetated. MRG has developed a landscape plan to ensure the location will be bermed and visually screened as much as feasible from the surrounding area in accordance with City of Loveland and the Centerra Design Review Committee requirements. Shown here on the right is the drawing of the location after interim reclamation and during the production phase. So the purple box was our original disturbance footprint, the oil and gas location. Green box was that temporary working pad surface, that flat space that was used for drilling completion. The disturbance area undergoes interim reclamation and will bring the flat area disturbance down to just the pink box outline, amoeba, whatever we want to call that. And that shows the production location, which will be fenced in accordance with City of Loveland requirements and will be approximately 5.9 acres. From this image, it's kind of tricky to visualize what that interim reclamation may look like. But on the next slide, we've got something to help you out. Here is a computer rendered image of the view from above with the vegetation growth overlain on an aerial image. This rendering is based off of the landscaping plan MRG has developed in accordance with the Centera Design Review Committee guidelines. Next slide. This is part of the same visual rendering. This shows you the image from the south side along East County Road 20E. Once as you can see, the berms have been constructed and the vegetation has grown in. Here's this similar image, just this will be from the eastern side, looking west. And here is the last image showing you from the northern view along the proposed access road. As you can see, there will be landscape berms all around the location that serve not only as a visual mitigation, but will also be considered a tertiary containment for any fluids that will be stored on location. Now that we've given you an overview of the project itself, we wanted to give you some highlights of project elements in the form of the best management practices. What is a BMP? What is a best management practice? These are practices that are designed to prevent or reduce impacts caused by oil and gas operations to air, water, soil, or biological resources, and to minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, and welfare, including the environment and wildlife resources. So we'll start with air. By rule, operators have to conduct continuous emissions monitoring. Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment requires continuous emissions monitoring 10 days before you spud, which is when you start drilling, to 6 months after the last well of the location is drilled. However, MRG, in coordination with the City of Loveland, has committed to go far beyond the 6-month subsequent monitoring requirement and have committed to 3 years of subsequent monitoring. CDPHE air permits will be in place before operations begin. General permit catalogs emissions throughout the operations and production phases. Additionally, water used for the project will be piped to the location. This will be critical in helping minimize truck traffic emissions. Also, as stated earlier, MRG plans to connect this location to pipelines for takeaway of all fluid hydrocarbons and natural gas. Lastly, in protection of MRG's intent to protect air quality, MRG will not conduct routine, non-essential activities on high ozone days. Odor. MRG will be utilizing closed loop drilling and will haul all cuttings off of regularly in covered trucks. MRG will also use a squeegee or other means to remove drilling fluids from the drill pipe as it exits the wellbore. This will minimize the amount of time that drilling fluids have contact with the air. There will be 3, as we said, there will be 3 air monitors around the location, and MRG will utilize a group 2 drilling mud, which has a low aromatic content. If MRG happens to receive an odor complaint, MRG will implement odor neutralizer agents within 24 hours. So some of the items that MRG will implement to protect water quality. Of course, there will be stormwater management controls on location when it is constructed. Stormwater will be regularly inspected on location. MRG is utilizing a closed loop system as well as we mentioned the OBM. So there will be a minimization of freshwater required for drilling operations. Freshwater only will be used for dust mitigation. And also groundwater baseline analytical data is gathered and monitored in accordance with DOGCC Rule 615. All wellbores are designed to comply with the DOGCC wellbore integrity rule to ensure that all groundwater aquifers are protected by sufficient strength pipe and cement coverage to isolate the aquifer zones from any potential hydrocarbons encountered at deeper depths. So some of the highlights of noise, light, and traffic, as we mentioned, MRG has a noise mitigation plan that has been drafted. They will utilize sound walls on location during drilling and completion operations. They've also had a lighting mitigation plan drafted to help design some of the lighting choices during the 24-hour operations and for safety factors. And I think I've mentioned a couple times now, the lighting will be downcasted. It will be directed towards task areas only. They will utilize warm color lighting, which will help minimize the light broadcasting across the landscape. Traffic, we will utilize temporary surface lines, bring water to location during operations to minimize traffic. And as well as having during production, the pipelines again to take away the natural gas and the fluid hydrocarbons. So, safety, drilling completions crews will always have daily safety meetings during active operations. An emergency response plan is being prepared and MRG is working with the city of Loveland to make sure that it meets all of the requirements that they're looking for, as well as ensuring that the city of Loveland has adequate information to be able to respond to anything that could happen at the MRG location. The location will also be monitored remotely via telemetry, in addition to regular in-person site visits. Waste. So MRG will properly characterize and dispose of all their waste. Again, they're using the closed loop system during drilling. Cuttings will be removed regularly from the location in covered trucks, and MRG will not permanently store any waste on site. So community engagement. Finally, and importantly, we'd like to talk about MRG's community engagement thus far. While not required, MRG did host an informational town hall back in January of 2022. Troy McWhinney has led multiple site tours to date of the location with approximately 70 participants. If anyone is still interested in a tour of the project area, you can reach out to info@mcwhinney.com for more information regarding tours. And to date, feedback from MRG has received on this project has been primarily favorable. So, community benefits of the project. MRG has worked with Centerra to schedule potential construction and drilling schedules with development so that wells may be drilled and completed prior to any residential construction or neighborhoods being built nearby. Wells have been evaluated nearby and all were found to meet wellbore integrity as required by DOGCC. Economic benefits of the potential project would be approximately $40 million over the life of the project provided to the community through the taxing authorities. The project will employ numerous employees and contractors to support the exploration and production of oil and gas. Designed in conjunction with the Kinston Development Team, the CS pad is a single location that is most protective of public health, safety, welfare, and the environment, while also being the most efficient access to the targeted mineral. Previous iterations of the project had initially intended to construct multiple locations to access the same mineral development area. MRG is working with City of Loveland to electrify the site and reduce all emissions. MRG will implement the continuous emissions monitoring at the location for 3 years after the last well is drilled, as per our commitment with City of Loveland and CDPHE. And by having telemetry at the location, MRG will be able to schedule site visits efficiently while still having constant data updating their team members of everything occurring at the location. MRG has been working to develop an efficient drilling project while protecting public health, safety, welfare, and the environment. CS location has limited receptors compared to some of the other alternatives that MRG evaluates. MRG has consulted with City of Loveland and the CDPHE to develop best management practices to protect the public health, safety, welfare, and the environment. And as previously mentioned, MRG is working closely with Kinston Development and the Centera Development West Group to minimize potential impacts to the community. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us this evening, and we look forward to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jessica, and members of the MRG team for that thorough overview of your proposal here. So we're at about the halfway point, of course, of our neighborhood meeting here tonight. We want to obviously give those of you who have an interest and have comments, questions, the opportunity in which to do so. So we're going to dive right into that. Let me just remind everybody again for clarification. If you are on the phone and wish to speak or get called upon, please dial *9. That will prompt a raise hand feature. And then when called upon, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself and provide your comment or question. Also, again, we would ask that you state your name and city of residence prior to speaking. And then as it stands right now, we will look to, limit comments to 3 minutes. So we do have folks kind of using a timer on that. So again, and let's just be mindful of kind of duplicative questions, comments, feedback, that kind of stuff. So we'll jump right into it. Nicole and Logan, I will look to you both to kind of guide the Q&A portion of our meeting.
Thank you so much, Troy. So as Troy mentioned, I'm Nicole Yost. I'm Engagement Coordinator for the City of Loveland. So we are going to be facilitating this public comment session today. So in addition to Troy's reminders, I also wanted to just add a few more. So just as a reminder, questions and comments about the project specifically are the most beneficial during this meeting. We will begin by accepting comments and questions from registered Loveland residents who wish to ask questions or provide feedback on the proposed project. So as a reminder, if you would like to speak and you're attending the meeting through Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature using the reactions tab in the Zoom app. And if you are calling in, press *9 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a notification that the host has asked you to unmute. At this time, please unmute, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment. The moderator will automatically mute you once you have finished speaking or your time limit has been reached. And with that, we will go ahead. So please, if you are a registered Loveland resident, please raise your hand and we will begin. And Logan, if you could get the timer up, then we will go ahead. All right, so we're going to begin with user Evie Buckner Opler. Evie, your time has begun.
Okay, my name is Evie Buckner Up, and I've lived in Loveland for 47 years. I love this place, and I don't understand why we would allow fracking in the neighborhood. I am an owner through divorce of an oil well here in the area. The economic benefit was for about 2 years, and after that, the rewards become very, very low until you re-drill the well. That's my first concern. The second question that I have for the MRG team is, what is planned with the used up drilling liquid? Because I know that we need to have a geological survey to be able to drill for the well, but we do not need a geological survey to push the used up liquids back under the ground. And it's been known to cause earthquakes, which really concerns me to live in this neighborhood. I'm unfortunately not able to just pack up my stuff and leave after 47 years living here. But I feel by allowing fracking this close, especially to a sports park, is not too conducive to the health of our children. And I'm lucky that my son is raised and doesn't have to play any sports down there. The also thing is that my thought is she made a big deal about no traffic because it's intended to connect production location to natural gas and oil pipelines. And what worries me is that we know that these pipelines are connected down to harbors in the area of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's mainly used. We are ruining our environment to get oil and gas production to other nations, other countries, to help them out, and for the few rich people become richer. And for that to ruin our environment, in my opinion, is not feasible, even though I was quite impressed with a lot of the statements that Jessica made about how to make sure that it's safer. Thank you. But the only question that I have is, what is going to be done with the used up fracking liquids? Thank you.
Thank you, Evie, for your comments there. Quickly, MRG team, do you want to respond to the question that Evie had?
So thank you for the comment. My name is John Benton, petroleum engineer. Appreciate the comments about hydraulic fracturing and sort of the concerns that are associated with that. So a couple of things to think about is that the wells are more than a mile deep or a mile away from the surface through solid rock. And we have hydraulically fractured thousands of wells here in Colorado. And we know from the measurements that we've taken in that hydraulic fracturing process that we don't fracture the rock any more than about 200 feet away from the wellbore. So even with that 200-foot distance, we're still more than a mile away from any surface activity. And the water disposal, thank you. Thank you, Andy Peterson, reminding me of disposal of the produced water that's produced back from the hydraulic fracturing gets hauled off to a commercial disposal site. Generally within the space of a bit more than a year, we're down to very few truck trips on a daily basis to haul that water away.
And if I may, just a supplemental statement, MRG is not intending to inject any disposal fluids at this location.
That's correct. There will be no disposal facilities at this site.
Okay, MRG team, thank you for the response to Evie's question there. Let's move on to the next individual that would like to provide a comment or ask a question.
Thank you. Teresa Jones, you are next. And Teresa, go ahead and unmute, please. Teresa, are you able to unmute for us tonight? Okay, Teresa, we're going to move on to the next guest, and we'll work with you to see if we can have you unmute. Next, Diane Stapleton, please unmute and begin your time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Diane Stapleton, Loveland. I actually have a question about tonight's meeting and how many people responded and how it was advertised, because everybody I talked to was not invited to this meeting. So I'm not sure which neighbors were included and how they were invited to this meeting. But I also would like to comment that the dioramas with the beautiful 50-year-old trees around it wouldn't last very long if they were planted in that mature state. You'd have to plant young trees and then they would take many, many decades to grow to the size that was shown in your picture. But my question for you is, what happens to the wells after that 3-year period of monitoring and safety protocols? And that, do you have any? That is it. Thank you for answering my question.
So I'll start with your question about the notification requirements at the city, Diane, and then I'll have
Thanks,
the
Troy.
MRG team respond to your question about that 3-year time period. So the city of Loveland, for the type of oil and gas development application that we are looking at, requires notifying property owners by mail within a 2,200 foot radius of the basically the production site, if you will, that sits on the property there. So there were mailers that went out to those property owners in that radius, signs also posted on location. We also required the information to be posted on our website. So we have 2 places where that was placed. One was on our current planning webpage, and then we also have a webpage that's devoted to specifically oil and gas matters, and not just the topic we're talking about tonight, but also another application that we have under review. So that's where folks would be able to obtain information about tonight's meeting and their ability to participate. And then, as you had heard with some of the other discussion, there are other opportunities we go through this process for folks to participate. If they were unable to join us at the neighborhood meeting tonight, they can go back and review this information, which will be posted on our website. And at some point, there will also be a public hearing with our planning commission in which the same notification will occur. So I'll let MRG respond to the question about the 3-year period.
Thank you, Troy. This is Tricia Fanning on behalf of MRG. Diane, thanks for the question. Backing up a little bit with regard to notification, what Mr. Bliss stated with regards to the 2,200 feet from the parcel, we notified over 638 residents and mailers. There's also signage that posts on the proposed location. Additionally, as Troy said, it was posted on the City of Loveland's oil and gas page. With regards to the trees, that is a rendering just to give an idea over time what that will look like, meeting both the City of Loveland and the DRC's requirements for landscaping. That obviously shows the picture with growth of trees. In the landscaping considerations, we are utilizing a water cistern on property to limit our water volume usage, but that is just a proposed look. With regards to the emissions monitoring post 3 years after the last well is drilled, Colorado Department of Public Health and Requirements requirement is 6 months. The last well drilled, MRG has gone above and beyond and committed to 3 years. The site is electrified, so for all production, there will be no hydrocarbons stored on site. Be a limited amount of produced water. The site is also designed with welded connections and flanges, so there's very limited potential to emit. MRG also has to comply with BDPHE's Reg 7 requirements for leak detection and repair, and has an obligation to conduct at minimum oil and gas optical imaging monitoring, as well as audio, visual, or factory. That will be done on a day-to-day basis during all drilling operations, and that moves to a limited process once we go to production. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next person, Nicole.
Thank you very much. Deb Garish. You are now up. Please unmute yourself and begin to speak. Deb, can you hear us?
Yes, but you can't, oh,
All right. You should be good to go now.
I'm Garish. I live in Loveland. I just moved here in August. I have two questions. The first is it conceivable, Mr. Bliss, that in follow-up emails, you can send us exactly what to search for on the COCG website? Because my previous efforts have not been successful, and I really want to see what the wildlife plan is. I live just south or just north of Equalizer and Van Hoots, Equalizer Lake and Van Hoots Reservoir. These are places where I walk several times a week. They've become my favorite places in the world. And I am very concerned about the impact on those wetlands. My second point, since I am new to Loveland, I am certain that everybody involved is very clear on what state and city codes are, and will work to make sure that MRG's plan will comply with all these codes. But if those codes have already been set in place, nothing anyone says here during these community meetings is likely to have any effect because the codes have already been established. Is that correct?
Well, I can certainly jump in and respond to your questions there, Deb. First, with respect to providing you information via email on how to navigate the COGCC website, we are more than happy to share with you some of those excerpts that our legal counsel put up at the beginning of this meeting to help direct you on the COGCC website. So like I said, when we're finished with the public input portion of this meeting, I will put my contact information up. Folks can take that down, send me an email, and I'm more than happy to send that information to you. To your point about city codes being met and whether or not, you know, that has any influence over the project. Well, certainly it does. You know, our goal, I shouldn't say goal, but our task, at least from a city staff perspective, is to review the proposal based upon our city regulations. And we have to do so in a manner that obviously is consistent with the Unified Development Code and consistent with other you know, standards such as the COGCC and other factors that take into account there. But given that this process takes a different path, meaning that this would be presented to our Planning Commission, the Planning Commission is going to have a decision in front of them that they're going to have to do that same kind of analysis. And so I can't sit here and predict kind of what our Planning Commission is going to do with the application. I could simply tell you that as a city staff reviewing the project, yes, it is our, you know, it is our job to make sure that we believe moving into any kind of public hearing that what is being proposed is consistent with the rules, the zoning standards, you know, the codes that we have adopted for oil and gas development here in the city of Loveland.
Do I have time for a quick follow-up question to that? So if everyone attending this meeting were to say, we are absolutely positively opposed, how would that factor into your report to the Planning Commission?
All communications that we receive will be in front of the Planning Commission when that hearing is set. So I encourage anyone who has, you know, particular feeling about the proposal to send those to me. And we are collecting that information, and that will be, like I said, in front of the commission as part of their consideration of the project. Did we get everything you needed there, Deb? I think you just muted yourself.
Deb, if you'd like to add anything else, please unmute. and with that, I think we can go ahead and move on.
Yeah, let's do that, Nicole.
Excellent. Kevin Hahn, please unmute, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment.
Yeah, my question and comment really is, why so close to residential areas? I'm in Lakes of Centera, in Loveland, and had I known this project was going to be happening, I probably would not have bought here. And I know, so the question is, why this site? Does McWinney own this site? And, he's got the mineral rights or gas and oil rights, but it's more of a concern of the timing of things. Like, boy, if I would have known this prior to purchasing here, I may have reconsidered. And how much of our input really is going to be considered, like the previous person commented, but really more just from the standpoint of why so close to residential areas, particularly. And I know there's all these best practices out there about mitigating air pollution, noise pollution, water, etc. And thank goodness there's those best practices, yet something can happen at any moment in these sites. And I don't know, it's just concerning that we're doing this so close to such beautiful residential areas, natural habitats. And I have, you're going to hear my cynicism around it, but it's like, wow, is this all for money? And at the risk of what it can do to our area and our environment and area in which we live and thrive and love. So anyway, it's just more of a question of why here?
Thanks for your question there, Kevin. MRG team, I'll turn that over to you to see if you'd like to provide a response to Kevin.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Hahn. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and thank you for sharing your experience and giving your concerns. In terms of why this site, I'll kick it over to Jessica here in a moment, and she can help walk through why this site was selected. And in large part, it's because it does allow us to do some of those amazing BMPs that we were talking about, including several that do exceed state and local legal requirements, such as having that pipeline takeaway for produced hydrocarbons that really lowers emissions. I just wanted to quickly touch on something you said about had you known about this project before you before you purchased your property. Because transparency is something that's enormously important to both MRG and McWinney. And in that vein, beginning in 2017, home builders, when they had interactions with prospective home buyers, were required to provide those prospective home buyers with a disclosure statement. And the disclosure statement is a recorded public document that has a heading that was conspicuously marked in underlined and italicized, saying oil and gas. And this disclosure statement notified prospective home buyers that there could be subsurface oil and gas operations beneath their properties. And the disclosure statement actually went as far as to specify that these oil and gas operations may include specifically hydraulic fracturing and drilling. After prospective homebuyers received that information, if they wanted to proceed toward closing, at the closing itself, they were required to execute a homeowner acknowledgement. And in this document, they certified that they had received the disclosure statement and that they understood all of the matters in that document. So just want to touch on that, and then Jessica will talk a little bit about why this site.
Yeah. Just real quick though, that did not happen. So at least in my case, that's news to me that was the case, because that information was not provided by the builder or anyone else from that matter. Anyway.
We appreciate your concern about the location. As we mentioned earlier, they has undergone the alternative location analysis, and MRG has been working very closely with Kinston and McWinney to pick a location that would be most protective of the community, of public health, the environment, and all of the potential sensitive receptors. This location did allow, as Julia mentioned, the best usage of best management practices and the opportunity to time appropriately oil and gas operations with development in the area so that we would minimize any possible impact. We also made sure to opt for a location that is outside of wildlife high priority habitats. We are approximately 4,500 feet south of Equalizer Lake, so that our surface equipment is further away from the community areas that Centerra residents enjoy.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, again for your input. Thanks, MRG, for your response. Nicole, cue up the next folks that want to chat.
Thank you. Next, we have Greg Hoftnecht. My apologies for the pronunciation, but please unmute, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. We live, I don't know, less than a mile south of Mountain View High School. And as we look at Google Maps, we're less than a mile from the wellhead. And the sports park being closer than we are to the proposed wellhead. So I just have a few questions here. We already know from studies that have been done that are accessible on the internet that there's thousands and thousands of wellheads across Colorado, and they are leaking. And that the state does not have enough staff to monitor them, at least with the equipment and the manpower that they have now. There is a fellow out of Boulder that is using infrared imagery to detect leakages and report them to the state. When it's done, the state gets hold of the contractor and they come out and fix it. And he's been back week after and see it's still leaking. So my concern, I guess, with this is I'd like some clarification on who's supervising MRG. It's, you know, MRG has a number of systems to monitor the system themselves, but who's monitoring accountability to that from the city side? And do you have enough manpower to monitor them at each stage of the process? Somewhat like construction, where you have hold points prior to inspection that can't continue. So is that kind of system in place? And honestly, can you tell us that we should not even be concerned about leaking wells in the state of Colorado? That's where the pollution's coming, benzene and methane. That's, I'll finish there. If I have another chance, I'll issue some other questions.
Okay, thanks, Greg, for the comment. I think I heard just some overarching concerns about the leaking of wells and the monitoring of that. MRG team, do you want to start? And then Matt, I don't know if you have any additional response you'd like to provide in that regard.
Thank you, Troy. This is Tricia Fanning on behalf of MRG. I'm happy to take that question. Some of your concerns mentioned with regards to leaking across the state, I think you're probably referring to studies that reflect on older wells. With regard to MRG and the design phase of the site, right from conception, the site will be welded connections, they will be flanged, they will also be remotely monitored with data systems. That in general is the design element of the pad. We also designed the pad to not store any hydrocarbons on site. So there'll be no oil stored on site. Everything will be taken away in a pipeline. Additionally, we're subject to Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment air regulations, as well as the EPA air regulations. The site will be electrified, so the potential to emit anything is quite low. Additionally, under Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Air Quality Control Division, we're regulated under what's called Regulation 7. Those have leak detection and repair requirements. We've also committed to the continuous emissions monitoring, which is required to be deployed 10 days prior to a well being drilled. And then the state regulation is to maintain that continuous emissions monitoring post 6 months, the last well drilled. However, MRG, in coordination with the city of Loveland and a consideration by Larimer County, has committed to post 3 years. Those emission monitors, at minimum, will be 3 surrounding the site, taking into consideration 1 being an anemometer, so it focuses on the potential wind directions. So we have to do studies to know what the potential wind directions are in case there's any potential to have anything emit. They will be monitoring for things that you raised in your concern, like benzene and ethylbenzene, which are volatile organic compounds. We have definitely gone above and beyond the regs. In addition to that, we have leak detection and repair requirements. There will be audiovisual olfactory, which will be conducted during all phases of construction and drilling operations. When we move to production, what's called site-specific emission factors will be determined. All of this is actually required by MRG, but MRG is contracted with a third-party air consultant. So even though we have the requirements to put together the data and the data is captured, it is all managed and maintained by a third-party consultant. Those reports are provided to PHC and then they become public once they are QA/QC. I hope that answers your question.
And then I would just say real quickly from a city standpoint, those in our Unified Development Code, which is our zoning ordinance, we do have requirements for annual reporting to some of those points that Tricia had brought up. So we would make sure that that's incorporated into any development, oil and gas development application approval.
I just respond quickly by saying that, I'm still looking for the answer with regard to who, independent of the contractor, in other words, sending reports is not enough in my mind, because there's nobody to inspect physically what's going on. So it needs to be inspected regularly, not by necessarily the contractor. No offense, but that's the way I've dealt with contractors in large scale construction before. And we know that if you're not there, things will not be done as you want.
And Greg, I apologize, but you are over time. Thank you very much for your feedback. If the city or MRG has any follow-up there, feel free to say that now. Otherwise, we will move on.
I'm happy to interject there. So with regards to inspections, obviously we've committed to a third-party contractor, but additionally, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has their own inspectors, and they do conduct routine inspections of the facility. In addition to that, with the most recent mission change rulemaking, Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission as well conducts inspections, and those are done frequently, especially when you move through the phases of construction, drilling, completions, into production. So they are committed by the state to conduct those inspections. So it is just not our own responsibility. There will be state oversight. And I just hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to our next speaker, Clint Leach. Please unmute, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment.
Hi, my name is Clint Leach. I am a resident of Loveland. And my question is there an estimate of the lifetime carbon footprint of this well, both the emissions from the operation of the well itself, and also the carbon pollution produced by burning the hydrocarbons the well produces? And then is there a mitigation plan, or are there any mitigation funds set aside for addressing downstream climate impacts that this well will contribute to? And related to that, I'd also like to ask how climate impacts factor into the permitting process and the city's decision-making. The carbon pollution produced by the well will likely exacerbate existing climate risks that we face in Loveland, things like severe drought, wildfire, heat waves, floods. Do those risks and the contribution of the well to those risks fall under the purview of the city's review process? Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to your responses.
Clint, thank you for the questions there. So let me touch on a few things, and then I'll turn it over to the MRG to talk about the carbon footprint stuff that you had identified. And Matt, you may have to check me on this, but the city of Loveland does have certain provisions in our Unified Development Code that speak to some of that. Now, we do have provisions that talk about air monitoring. So that's an element that obviously not within my level of expertise, but we will have folks help us with that review and monitoring as we're going through not only review of the application, but the operation of the facility if approved. So certain elements like that the city does have identified in the Unified Development Code that we have to make sure that we adhere to with these particular applications that kind of speak to that issue in one way or another regarding, potential climate change there. Matt, anything else that you can think of that I should be touching on?
Sorry. Yeah, it's a good point. Whenever you're dealing with climate issues, obviously that's something that is going to be multi-jurisdictional in nature, and there is a lot of work being done right now at the Air Quality Control Commission and at the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, looking at cumulative impacts and cumulative air quality impacts of the oil and gas industry and all our other emission sources within Colorado's Front Range and beyond. So I think that is something that is being looked at, but it's more of a statewide look at those issues rather than, at the city level or even the county level.
MRG team, anything you want to mention on the anticipated carbon footprint that I think Clint had also asked on?
I don't know that we could specifically answer that at this point, but as required as part of our air permitting process, we have to work to estimate our emissions with regards to the air permit. Additionally, as Mr. Sura stated, we work on a cumulative impacts report, but I would restate that the commitment in our design is to limit the emissions, and then restate that our BMPs. The site will be electrified for drilling, and it will be electrified through the production phase, and the design elements limit any potential for emissions. We also have a BMP that we stated earlier that we will commit to non-routine work on high ozone days. So that would be another statement associated with that. And a commitment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Clint, thanks so much for your questions and your comments. All right, so let's move on to Harry Shivery. Please unmute, provide your city of residence, and begin your comment.
Yeah, my name's Harry Shivery. I live in Loveland, and growing up in the oil capital of the world, Tulsa, Oklahoma, a lot of the same things I hear tonight, I've heard all my life. But the primary question, since I'm not an environmental expert, would like to comment. I don't know if they provided an environmental restoration fund. What happens to the land 20, 30, 40 years from now? Do taxpayers have to go back and clean up any damage that may occur during the operation? My primary question, though, is estimated $40 million in tax revenues. I understand that is a large amount of money and could help the city of Loveland a great deal. What assurances do we have that we have the political will or the mechanisms by which we can be assured that we will gain $40 million over the life of the project, other than their word? I think that's my primary question.
Thanks for your question there, Harry. Certainly one that's what I would say outside of my wheelhouse. Matt, I don't know if you have any input in regards to Harry's question or not, if that's something we need to look into a little bit further. I can't speak to the economics of the situation and what implications that may or may not have, down the road. But Matt, do you have a comment or an input to Harry's question?
That would probably be something, it was presented by the applicant, and they may have a better breakdown as to whether that's going to school districts, special districts, what entities are going to be benefiting. So that, I guess I would love to have a little bit more information on that from the applicant.
Yes, this is Tricia Fanning on behalf of MRG. So that is an estimate, and that's based on what is designated to special tax districts. That's based on life of the project, from conception all the way through production phases. I would also like to touch on another component of the environmental restoration. So any operator within the state of Colorado, most recently under the new financial assurance rules that have just went into effect last year, April 30th of 2022, each operator registered within the state of Colorado operating one or more wells is committed to paying into an orphan well mitigation fee. And then it's based on the number of wells that they operate that, and that is paid annually. In addition to that, the financial assurance that is put forth by an operator is based on their barrel of oil equivalent. In this case, until these wells are drilled and producing, they're looked at as zero producers, which come with a commitment of single well financial assurance. That single well financial assurance, by definition, is by total vertical depth. Those costs are attributed from the COGCC. In this case, it will be $40,000 for each well bore for plug and abandonment, and $100,000 for the location. So to give you in reference, that's $100,000 for this particular location CS, and then $40,000 for each one of the wells drilled. That is kept with the COGCC. It can be put up in multiple forms. Typically, it's cash or surety. That's held by the COGCC until the site meets all obligations under the Oil and Gas Act, which means from the point at which it has to meet final reclamation. All wells are plugged and the surface is returned to its existence. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. And thank you, Harry, for your question. All right, so next.
Can I
Go
add
ahead.
more? Well,
Oh, sure.
the question I have, the estimation, I understand you do a project analysis, you estimate what your profit, your return on investment is, but is there any way that they would be willing, MRG to put up a bond to assure that, because once we vote it in, or the city votes it in, we're on the hook for that, regardless of whatever expenses come our way, or the lack of jobs or the jobs. We have voted something that's already in progress, and we have no assurance of the $40 million. An estimate is just an estimate. And I understand from a construction point of view, you estimate your return, your ROI. I get that. But is there any way we could get an assurance bond through the city to say that we get the $40 million, forget the tax breaks, forget any tax write-offs, we're going to get an approximate $40 million as citizens of Loveland. I don't really care where it goes. I do, but the city will determine that. My question is, what's to avoid any tax write-offs or loopholes or anything in the future, I'm concerned about the $40 million. I think that's more the summation, and we may not have the answer tonight. I get that, but I'm not an environmentalist, but the carrot out there is more than $40 million. Where's how we are sure that that carrot will ever be delivered? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could take that one. Troy, you can hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
It's Bill Irwin, project manager. The tax revenues associated with this project that are estimated, and thank you for the question, are not subject to rates of return or anything like that. They're ad valorem property taxes, severance taxes, mill rates set by the various taxing authorities. So the county, the city, the school boards, etc. Those are fixed and they're voted on by the various taxing authorities, and those mill rates are set. Those taxes are applied at every barrel of oil produced and every MCF of gas produced and every barrel of oil produced at the production point of that oil and gas. So it comes off the top before anybody else gets any money. So it's the way taxes are set on resource production in Colorado. So you can be assured of that. The only risk factor on those taxes is, of course, commodity prices, which we have no control on. Those are a world market. Thank you.
Mr. Irwin, that is perfect. Now, because we got that commitment. Now, can I ask one caveat to that? Can we be assured that they will never receive a special tax exemption from those taxes that you just stated? That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't control the taxing authorities, so yeah, I can't make any assurances. But those are state and federal regulations. And even the county and other taxing regulatory authorities. So we have no impact on those. We just pay our taxes.
Thank you very much for that response. We will move on to our next caller. Will the caller with phone number ending in 1654 please press *6 to unmute, and you will be able to speak now.
Hi, my name is Donna Dreska, and I am a resident of Loveland. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've already submitted an email to Troy and to Bill, but listening to the meeting tonight on the phone, not having the ability to see all the maps and things that were shown, still have a couple of questions and a comment. If that transparency that was put into place in 2017, I bought my place in 2021, I knew nothing about this. I was not informed by anyone, so that is not being enforced. Okay, so is this a rezoning of the well site? Is one question. And when are we going to learn where the lines are going to go after they leave that well site? There's 11 wells, so I think there's going to be 11 lines. When are we ever going to learn exactly where those lines are going, even if they are a mile underground? When are we ever going to be able to be told that? And are they going under Hout and Equalizer? This is the first we've ever heard of this. And if on the well site, on the property, I thought I heard you say it was zoned for a planned unit development. And maybe I misheard that because I didn't get into the meeting until later. But if this is a rezoning, then we do have some influence over this. This is not a done deal. It just continues with every comment I'm hearing to sound like it is a done deal. And that's disturbing, to say the least.
Thank you for your comment there, Donna, and appreciate the fact that you were able to get on tonight. So even if it was by phone, I did receive your email, and yes, we will document that for the record. But real quickly, in response to your question about rezoning, there is no rezoning occurring as a result of this. The zoning that's already in place, which is referred to as the Millennium Planned Unit Development, is zoned such that oil and gas development could potentially occur at this site, providing that it complies with City of Loveland standards and obviously is approved by Planning Commission. I'll let MRG respond to some of your other questions about location. How far does this extend? Some of those concerns that you had not only brought up here, but also in your email.
And are they going under any residential areas?
This is John Benson. Thank you for the question. I'm not entirely certain how to answer this. I'll talk to a couple different things. The production lines that leave the location, there's only one of each of those for the natural gas and the oil that leave the location. There's only one of each of those that leave the producing location. You're asking about the 11 well bores. Those 11 well bores do run north from the pad. And they're, again, as we've talked before, they're a mile away from the lakes and the residential areas because they're a mile deep through solid rock. So yes, if you look at it from a surface standpoint, they would extend underneath those lakes, but they're a mile away from those lakes. So it's just, they're still a long ways away, and that's a mile through solid rock, not through air.
What about the residential areas? That is the question I've asked at every single meeting, and I have not gotten an answer on that yet.
If there are, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. If there are residences between where the pad is located and where the well bores terminate, then yes, they would go underneath the residences. But again, they're a mile away from those residences.
I understand they're a mile underground. I also understand that things can happen. But I'm still asking, is it just 11 straight north of that well site? So you're not going to go off to the side horizontal at all and come out with 11?
That's
well
correct.
bores, as you call them?
There are 11 horizontal well bores. They go out to the side and then they go north. So we encompass that 2,000 acres that is in the OGDP application. So if you draw a rectangle of 2,000 acres, which Jessica showed earlier, you can see where those wells are laid out. And there will be 11 wells within that 2,000 acres.
Okay, well, I still don't have an answer because I'm on the phone. I can't see what the area is, and I don't know if it's going to come under the residential areas where we live. And there was, if the transparency was important, it wasn't enforced at all.
Ms. Jessica, this presentation will be posted online on the City of Loveland website, and you're welcome to go look at this 2,000 acre drilling and spacing unit area we're talking about, and hopefully that helps provide a visual that can better answer your question. I know it's a little difficult on the phone.
Okay, well, hopefully it will show the 11 well bores going off. Does it?
Yes, it will.
Yes, ma'am, it will.
Okay.
Thank you very much for calling in. Next, we will move on to user Mary Giacomini. Please unmute, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment, please.
Yes, this is Mary Giacomini. I've been a resident of Loveland for 24 years. And I was wondering, one of the last comments that the group said was that the responses when people wrote in to the city of Loveland, that they were positive. I don't believe that that's true. It was mostly negative. Most people don't want this.
Mary, I can tell you, at least from the city side of things, that a lot of the input that we've received thus far has raised a lot of concerns. I think, and I'll let MRG speak to this, I think that response was in regards to maybe some prior outreach that they were talking about.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the one that's the most recent. The other question is, where's all this water coming from? We've been in a drought for a long time. Minus maybe this winter getting a little bit more moisture.
MRG, do you want to speak to where the water's coming from?
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. There have been several direct communication with MRG that has been overwhelmingly positive in the form of emails directly to MRG, as well as on the guided tours that Mr. McWinney himself has provided to several members of the public of the project location. And I will let Mr. Andy Pearson answer the water question.
Thank you, Mary. That's an excellent question on the water. There's actually plenty of water available in this part of the state for hydraulic fracturing. Over the last 15 years, while the horizontal drilling rate has increased, there's been a robust infrastructure of water management companies formed. Their purpose is to source industrial water and deliver it to the oil and gas sites for the operators to use for hydraulic fracturing. It is industrial water. We know agricultural, domestic, recreational water is used. It must be industrial, and MRG will be contracting with one or more of these water management companies to source and deliver the industrial water.
It doesn't tell me where it's coming from, though.
A variety of sources. Some industrial wells recycle from industrial processes, and at various times of year, if there's enough water in the river basins, free run water it's called, and the acquirer has the proper water right that specifies industrial use, they gather that water, store it, and then deliver it at the appropriate time and place.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I have a hard time watering my garden to have food to eat.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mary. All right, so we'll move on to our next caller. Let's see here. We have Caitlin Mauve, I believe. Caitlin, go ahead and provide your name, city of residence, and begin your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Well, thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to touch on what Mary G said right before me. She had commented on saying that Centerra is heavily opposing this project, and that the comments that keep coming up stating that it's heavily supported is a lie. If you go on the COGCC website, you can still see that there were over 100 comments heavily opposing this project. It's completely public, it's out there. I believe I only counted 3 were in favor. So to say that this project is supported is just a lie. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there and see why, like, I would love to hear what Troy Bliss has to say to that. Are you only commenting on the city's process because it's not available to the public to see? Because like I said, you can just go on the COGCC website and see that it's heavily opposed.
And Caitlin, real fast before we go in, I apologize, I didn't catch your city of residence, please.
Yes, I'm located in Denver, Colorado, but I work closely with Loveland residents.
Thank you.
Yeah, Caitlin, as I mentioned with, I think it was the prior speaker, Mary, the comments that we've received thus far, whether it be directly to me or through our oil and gas portal, have been primarily raising concerns with respect to the project. So I can't speak to a lot of the support ones that MRG staff members were talking about. And I have not had the opportunity to go on to the COGCC website and review all that information in depth at this juncture.
Okay, well, I would definitely recommend looking at that because you will see that the people that you work for and are supposed to protect are heavily in opposition of this project. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And we are at time. If there's anything else we need to address from the presentation team, we can do that now.
Nicole, do we have other folks that want to speak? You know, if others are inclined, I'm happy to go a little bit beyond our time limit just because we got started, you know, roughly 5-10 minutes late, but.
Great. Yeah, so we can extend a bit. So if you have not had a chance to speak yet and have a question or comment that has not been answered, we do have we could maybe extend for 10 more minutes. I've got 2 folks who've spoken already in the queue, but as a reminder, raise your hand through the Zoom chat feature, or if you're calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand if you have any last question. All right, caller Jane Perkins, please unmute yourself, provide your name and city of residence, and begin your comment.
Hi. Hi, this is Jane Perkins. I live in Loveland, Colorado. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. As a Loveland resident of 5 years, I strongly oppose this fracking proposal. To frack our air, water, the health of humans and wildlife, and frack our children and grandchildren's future away. I'm actually stunned that Loveland City would agree to fracking within our city limits. And I urge Loveland City and the COGCC to deny this. The number of comments on the COGCC website regarding this fracking plan are undeniably in opposition. And my question for MRG and Loveland City is this: are you not aware that the IPCC and the UN climate change report on the dire state of our climate change crisis that not only affects Colorado, but the entire world in the form of drought, heat waves, and massive wildfires, is that the number one contributing factor to this is the burning of fossil fuels. Every citizen in the world now is witnessing this, and this is due to fossil fuels. It is the year 2023, and this climate crisis is putting us on track to exceed 450 points per million CO2 in our atmosphere. In the last 50 years alone, we have lost 2/3 of our biodiversity. McWhinney's fracking plan will further contribute to the problem. Front Range air quality has recently been categorized as a severe non-attainment zone and given an F by the EPA. So the health of all of us, our wildlife, our water, our air will be affected. Your containment of 1 mile, the winds carry the methane and the butane and the other pollutants in the air. So I'm going to speak for those who have no voice. Wildlife, our little children, whose future already is bleak and dire with this climate change crisis. What do they have to say about it? They would have a resounding no. A resounding scream of no. This will harm our lives in countless ways. The research is there, it is proven, and we're putting our most vulnerable, our infants, our elderly.
Jane,
Those.
I
Yes.
apologize. You are at time. We're at 3 minutes already, but thank you so much for
Okay.
your comment tonight. All right, so we have, let's see, Diane Stapleton. So I know you spoke already. If you have a brief comment or question, we have a moment or two for you to speak.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. This is actually Tom Stapleton, Diane's husband. And I have a quick comment and then a couple of questions. First of all, to echo Diane's comment earlier, the misrepresentation in that landscape illustration is concerning and really tells me all I need to know about the rest of the presentation and what may or may not have been misrepresented, if something like that, because those trees in that illustration, there's many of us on this call that would never be alive to see. So that's one comment. Several questions. One is, there was an illustration on the traffic pattern, but what is the truck expectation? What are the numbers of trucks per day that are expected from this? That's question one. Question two is, it was stated that there would be no permanent waste storage, but what length will waste be stored there? So again, not what won't be, but what will be. And then the third question, Troy, is for you. Is there a public record of the communications that you receive in the city? Thank you.
All right, thank you. MRG team, I'll let you respond to the gentleman's questions first, and then I'll touch on the correspondence and the public record piece.
Yes, thanks, Troy. Sorry, we're pulling up the data with regards to the question. One thing I can jump in with Tricia again on behalf of MRG with regard to the wave, what length of time for the wave. With regards to the drilling phase, drilling cuttings, it's a closed loop system and drilling cuttings will be removed on a daily basis. The only, there is no hydrocarbon stored on site. Again, all products are taken away through oil and natural gas pipelines. With regards to the storage of produced water, the produced water that will be removed is probably less than a load a day at this point. And then I'll let Andy Peterson add in from the engineering side.
Thanks, Tricia. To clarify that, the water hauling loads are fairly high at the beginning of the project when the wells come on at an estimated 36 loads per day. That's not very high in comparison to construction traffic on other projects, but we do anticipate about 36 loads of water a day initially in year one. And that comes down to about a load a day starting in year 4. The well's water production falls off pretty quickly. So an estimated 36 loads per day average in year 1 down to approximately a load a day and falling from there starting in year 4. Thanks for the question.
And then also just to interject too, with your concern about the rendering of the landscape, MRG invites you, if you have concerns, to definitely commit to taking a tour. And on those tours, Mr. McWhinney himself is welcome to show you other facilities that mimic what the site will look like over time. If you have any questions, you can access info@mcwhinney.com to set up a tour to see similar facilities of what the space rendering is.
And then also to touch on with respect to the collection of communications correspondence and such. Yes, now, what we want to do is obviously, we don't have a formal application in for this CS pad location, and as such, we will continue to collect any input that is provided to the city of Loveland, and all of those communications will be compiled and presented to our planning commission. At such time, all of that information will be available to folks that are interested. Right now, I can't say that, it's being distributed, as we speak, because we are still collecting information. But once you see the notice for the public hearing meeting, that's a good indication that, the city of Loveland is preparing those materials and will be presenting it to not only the planning commission, but those of you that are interested will have access to that information via our website.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And I probably don't need to say this, but I will. I agree with everything Jane said prior to my speaking, as well as everybody else who has been opposed to this. So, for the record.
And I do want to interject right here and mention that we have kind of gone past our time. We did extend it a little bit, but like I said on the onset of the meeting, we wanted to be respectful of everyone's time. I think we have a few folks that perhaps have some additional questions. What we would ask is that you can certainly send those directly to myself, and we can get a response back to you. But we do want to be mindful of the time here tonight. And it looks like some of the folks that were wanting to speak again did have an opportunity during the course of this meeting. Let me share my screen real quick, because as I had promised, did want to make sure that everybody had access to my contact information. So hopefully everybody can see this right now. Let me blow this slide up here. As mentioned, all of the information that we get on this particular application will be posted to our oil and gas webpage, devoted just specifically to oil and gas issues. Now, keep in mind, City of Loveland is already reviewing an oil and gas submission. We've got information under review. That's referred to as the CE pad. So don't confuse that with the CS pad. At this point, this is just an introductory to the CS proposal. As mentioned, we don't have a formal application at this time. But once we do, information will be posted to our oil and gas page. Likewise, those of you that have additional communications outside of this neighborhood meeting, you are more than welcome to send those directly to myself. Email, of course, is the best way in which to do so, so that we can make sure that all of that information gets made as part of the record on the application. And certainly, if you have questions that we need to help kind of clarify or give additional input on, happy to respond. As it stands right now, we are kind of getting a little bit overwhelmed, so the response may not be immediate, but we'll certainly do our best to make sure that we respond to all people that have questions and try to do so in a timely manner. That being said, certainly want to thank everybody for their time here this evening. Obviously, there's still got a lot of process in which to go through with this particular application. I think those of you know how to reach out, at least from the city side of things. Certainly, I'm sure the MRG members are welcome to take any feedback from you all as well. And the notices that were sent out do have contact information for both the MRG representative as well as City of Loveland. So want to end by thanking you all for your participation here this evening. Thank you to our panelists. Matt, I appreciate your legal input here this evening, kind of going through our process and also the CRGC stuff. MRG team, thank you again for your a comprehensive, in-depth presentation. Like I said, this information will be posted to our website as well. So any of your neighbors, friends, people that are just interested in general, want to go back and see this information, they will have access in which to view the video off of our oil and gas webpage. So thanks
Yeah.
again. And I'll turn it over to the MRG for a closing here.
Thank you very much. Julia Ryan, on behalf of MRG, we also wanted to thank City of Loveland for hosting this meeting. Thank you all that attended. Just kind of by way of concluding, I just didn't want anyone to take Ms. Donahue's comment about the favorable input we've received out of context. But Donahue was simply saying that those persons that have been on site tours with Troy McWhinney have indeed provided favorable feedback. We have been looking at all feedback, including other feedback, but we think it's really telling that people who have visited sites have looked favorably on the project. We think seeing really is believing. So I just wanted to reiterate Ms. Fanning's comment and invitation that if you're interested in a site tour, you can contact info@mcwhinney.com.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you again for your time. Also want to say a special thank you to both Nicole and Logan for their help in moderating tonight's meeting. So thank you very much, Nicole, Logan. Really appreciate your assistance here this evening and hope you all have a good rest of the evening. I'm sure we'll continue to be in communications on this particular proposal as it moves forward.
Thank you, Troy. Good job.
Good night.
Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah, good night.